Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to the fifth and final episode of our Champions Week. And I'm delighted to be joined today by our Planet FPL mini league winner and, more importantly, second overall in Fantasy Premier League last season. It's Suvansh Singh. How are you, Suvansh?
I'm great, James. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Thanks for joining us, mate. I want to kind of start off by getting an understanding of how you're feeling at the moment. You obviously had a magnificent season. Does it have a tinge of regret, or are you kind of filled with pride at the moment?
I think at the time, right after the game week 38 finished, I was kind of, feeling a little down after the season because, it was right there for me and I was in the running. And, I might not even get the chance of, finishing this high in my entire FPL playing career. So, like right after the time of the end of FPL, I was feeling a little down. But, now that I finally realized, coming second is like absolutely brilliant. So,
Of
I don't
course.
need to, uh, look back on it and, see it with regret. So, yeah.
So it's pride, really, is
Yeah.
the big feeling for you. What's your FPL history like? We just had a brief chat offline before we started. Your FPL career is very short, isn't it?
Yeah. So, basically this was a new FPL ID for me because I couldn't recover my last email. So it says this is my first season and I
Right.
finished second. But actually, this is my second season properly playing FPL. For in the first season, I think I've finished around 200k.
It's good. It's
Yeah.
very good for a first season. So what made you take the decision to start playing FPL? Was it through an interest in the Premier League? Was it through different fantasy sports?
I think I just generally developed an interest in football, actually playing it, and then my friends got me into the Premier League because I have a lot of cousins also, who are different fans of different Premier League teams. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Okay. So 200,000 first season. Do you look back on that, and was that a learning experience for you? Did you feel like you made mistakes along the way in that first season?
Yeah, definitely. I was still, new to the game, and I think mid-season I got into the Twitter community, and that also kind of taught me a lot in terms of chip usage, etc. Because I wasn't really sure, of like even double game weeks and blank game weeks. So yeah, that was my first season properly playing, and I kind of like learned along with it.
And obviously coming into this season, have you then, this time last year, are you setting targets? I'm going to guess going into season one, you probably haven't got targets. Are you thinking to improve, get a personal best? Did you have a target going into this season?
This season, so like because I finished 200k last season, so I was just thinking about improving and maybe trying to get into the top 100k. So it was generally just about bettering my rank and just having fun with it.
So, I mean, you started really well last season. At which point did you start reassessing that this was going to be a lot better than 100,000?
I think it was early in the season where I even got into the top 5k like really early, and I stayed there for like around 10 weeks. So I mean, I knew early on that it was going to be a lot better season than last year. So yeah.
Do you think, on reflection, I mean, the start you had, just to clarify, 316,000 game week one rank is obviously great. After game week two, you had a game week rank of 21,000 game week two, took you to 24k. Game week three, game week rank 250,000. Now you're up to 7k. Kept progressing. You had a little dip around about game week 10. You dropped down to about 40k. But then from there, I mean, you just kept rising, basically. Do you reflect on last season and think the start was really important? Because it's interesting, obviously, like Jamie didn't have particularly a fast start like yourself. Do you reflect on it and think the start's important? Are you conscious about that now going into next season?
Yeah, I do. Because if you're getting a good start, so if you like stick with the template later on, it's easy for you to maintain rank. Generally, also it's easier to maintain rank than to have to climb through it. So I would say it's not essential, but it does help.
It's an interesting slant on that because psychologically, I'd think the higher you are, the greater the chance of suffering red arrows because you've just simply got less people above you. But you're saying you found it quite straightforward to stay high?
I mean, when I was, lurking around the 5K rank, I found it quite easy. I was just making, I wouldn't say template transfers, but just playing the game, not taking too many hits, not taking too many risks. So it was kind of easy to maintain rank at that point. But later on, in order to obviously push through the ranks, I had to take a few risks as well.
So game week 22, you broke through the top 1,000 barrier. You had a fantastic game week 21, which I want to say was the Jared Bowen week when he had the double.
Game week.
You jumped from 3,000 up to 500. And then from there, bar dropping out very briefly in game week 28, you always stayed in. So are you saying you very much stuck with the template? Because there must have been times that you broke away from it to keep progressing, right?
Yeah. So before my 35 wildcard, I wasn't taking too many big risks. So I was, like it was basically short-term punts. So, and even I like to punt on captaincy as well sometimes. So it was like picks like Damari Gray. Even I had Lukaku for some time. That didn't do great. Then I had Fernandez and Ronaldo for the, when they were getting good points. I think it was around game week 20.
Game week 33, you captained Ronaldo, I know.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So around those game weeks, and before that, with Bruno Fernandes. So I wouldn't say I was taking big risks, but yeah, certain picks at certain times when they have good fixtures, I do tend to go against the template a little.
So you were kind of hovering about 200, 300, basically all the way through from sort of game week 23 up to about game week 34. Game week 35, you jump from 199th to 34. And in game week 36, you jump from 34 to 2. And a little bit like Jamie, he just had that massive jump at the end. And it's remarkable to reflect on it that the two of you who finished first and second both had this remarkable jump at the end, because I think we've kind of become accustomed to thinking right at the end of the season, if you get sort of like game week 35, 36, you probably need to be in the top 10 or so to have a chance. But you both took a real big jump in the last 3 or 4 game weeks. What was it that made that happen? Because in Jamie's case, he went completely against the template, basically. What was it for you?
I think it was very similar for us, actually. I think he played it was basically chips for us, right? So even he played the game week 35 wildcard, I think. And then I had the bench boost to go with it as well in the 36.
Yeah.
And I went without Salah, and I got De Bruyne and Son, and I had that lucky Son captaincy in 35.
Everyone had it. You had it. Andy Martin, who was on with us Tuesday, same thing as well, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So against Leicester, I think was it? Yeah.
That's correct for Sonny. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I captained De Bruyne in 36 because it was obvious then with him being rested in the earlier game week. So yeah, I would say saving my chips for the last was quite a helped me get a boost in my ranks, and then the next game week I think I captained Richarlison. So I think actually captaincy played a huge role as well.
Yeah, so you had the big jumps. It's similar stories. De Bruyne 36 after Son 35, Richarlison 37. The three of you did the same. And I think you and Jamie both captained Sonny in game week 38 as well.
Yes, that's right.
Going into 38, obviously you're second. What are you thinking at that point? Because I know you took a -4 going into the final day. What's your thinking? Is it to try and do as many different things as Jamie, or you both ended up captaining the same player?
Yeah, actually, I'm not too proud of how I went about my thinking for game week 38 because, generally I feel I'm very relaxed usually, when making my transfers. But I don't know why with game week 38, I just felt like I had a lot more pressure. So
I think that's very understandable, mate.
Yeah. So I was initially my plan was just to, not take a -4, just to make the two transfers, maybe get Vardy or Kane and then a midfielder to go along with it. So I was actually it was a 50-50 decision between Kane and Martinelli. I think who the two of them would have actually won me FPL. And the second was to get Luis Diaz I think a 4.5 million forward, and Kane. So I went with that for a -4. It was actually intended to, because Jamie had a double up of Mane and Luis Diaz against Wolves. So I was thinking, like the point difference between us wasn't that great. There was 2 points. So I thought that, maybe taking a -4 and then making that a 6. And then I can, like if Liverpool do like kind of thrash Wolves, like I won't be in it. So
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to defend against that. So I went for Luis Diaz instead.
Yeah. Now, I don't think there was anything wrong with your strategy, because I think a lot of people might look at it and go, hang on, you captain the same player. Because it was probably quite obvious that James was captain. So it's worth saying, I think he was your highest scorer on the day. So,
Yeah.
I mean, technically you captained the right player. Jamie said to us it was you having Kane when he saw was the one he was really worried about. And actually, yeah, as you said, it could have well been the difference. I mean, if Kane gets 3 on the day or something like that, would have been the differential for you. You didn't need to have 8 or 9 different players. You just needed the kind of 2 or 3 against to better his. But I think he had like Reece James and a couple of others who returned who you didn't, I think.
Yeah, he got late returns from, I think, the Reece James as well as Matip.
What was you doing on the final day? Was you out with
I was
friends or?
No, I was actually in a FPL meetup here in Mumbai with so Late Riser invited me to a bar nearby in Mumbai only. So yeah, that's what I was watching. All every game was being screened there, and it was a lot of fun.
Shout out Pranel, what a superstar he is, and that's very nice. Had you
Definitely.
had contact with him previously, or did he just
Yeah,
contact you?
no. So he interviewed me for one of his Premier League India talkies he
Okay,
hosts. So yeah, that's how.
are you a wire listener? I'm going to guess you
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah.
Have you taken inspiration? Because obviously it's a very short FPL history for you. Have you taken inspiration from the likes of Late Riser and his content?
Yeah, definitely. I even yours. I like to follow Always Cheating. I usually taken a lot of content during the season as well. So yeah.
Did you find it's interesting reflecting on that in that final week building up to, or the final days actually, because it was only 3 days from the end of game week 37? Were you taking on the same amount of content as always, or were you shutting down? Because it's interesting that the side of it, none of the content creators were in that position, right? So how
I,
are you dealing with the information that you're taking on at that stage?
I actually shut myself down completely. I
Yeah,
wasn't
I don't
listening to
blame you.
anything. I was just looking at the teams around me, and then what all possible transfers I could make. So it was just basically that. So days and days of thinking about who to transfer in, and yeah, just looking at other people's teams and how I can maybe offset and get that first rank.
Did it feel like there were more than 2 of you involved at the end? Because Jamie only mentioned you. He never mentioned anyone else.
There was actually so I think there were a lot of Wadi captains as well. I think who climbed through the ranks. So at one, I only finished second, and I was ahead of the third place of like by like 2 points.
Okay.
So it wasn't that big of a difference actually. And when we were checking live ranks at the FPL meetup as well. So at one point actually the I think the guy who finished third was actually first, and that it was like
Okay.
10 minutes before game week 38 ended. So yeah, I mean, I think there was a couple more guys who were in the final run.
Right. Were you first at any stage? Was there any point? And I checked live FPL a lot. I'm sure a lot of our listeners do. Was there any point during them final weeks that you were first at any stage?
I think somewhere in the middle I climbed up to first, but it was for a very little amount of time because he had that early going from Mane as well. So that helped him. And when I was waiting for Saka to get that penalty and take it. So I don't know what happened there. Martinelli ended up taking it.
Yeah, I had
Uh,
Saka last day as well, and wondered about that. Yeah.
I actually had Martinelli in my FPL team the whole time until the last game week. I think last 2 or 3 until my wild card. So yeah.
What was the feeling like at this meetup at the end? Because I've seen videos of you there, and it looks quite celebratory. Actually, was that the general mood?
Yeah, definitely. It was just me who was feeling a little low. I don't know why. because I mean, as I explained before, it was I probably won't get this chance ever. So it was just kind of a little regret that I had at the end of the games. But yeah, the mood there was definitely celebrated.
You're first person ever from India to finish in the top two. Does that take on its own sense of pride, though?
Yeah,
It must
definitely.
do.
Especially with the the kind of love I was getting on Twitter as well from Indian FPL managers. It was great. Uh, just I feel really proud of making this history. So yeah,
How's FPL and the Premier League viewed in India? How big is it?
I think it's quite big, especially here in Mumbai. There's different organizations as well, and informally as well. My friends and all were always talking about in college, and going out to turfs to play. So I think it's definitely growing and it's becoming quite big, I would say.
Favorite team?
Um, I would say the North London teams actually, Arsenal and Spurs.
Just Spurs would be good. Thank you, mate. You don't need to worry about the other lot. Remember, Saka didn't take the penalty. He did you no good, mate. Just Spurs, right? But you said to me offline, actually, it's Real Madrid. Is the
Yeah,
team
yeah.
that you follow most? What's the choice behind that, and how long have you followed them for?
Actually, I would think it was just one game I was watching randomly when I just started playing football. So it was Real Madrid 10 and Vallecano. I think it was the team 2. So, and just
Okay,
watching the absolute dominance of the game, and obviously with Ronaldo and Bale and Benzema playing, it was just quite intriguing as a football club. So yeah, that's how it started. It was around 2014 or 15, I think.
I'm interested to ask, just obviously while we're talking about India and stuff as well. It feels remarkable that we haven't had an India team qualify for a World Cup. Have you got any thought process behind that? Because it doesn't feel like it's something that's ever been close or is going to be close soon. It feels quite astonishing for a country your size who loves the game so much as well. Is that influence of other sports like cricket and stuff, do you think?
Yeah, I think like whenever a person wants to start up in sports or yeah, in basically in sports, like when you're starting up in cricket here in India, you just get a lot more support. So I think that does matter. And with a country the size of India, I think the infrastructure needs to be better for especially for football. That there's no like actual like proper, I would say, training programs, especially not as good as ones in other countries like the UK. So I would say, yeah, growing up as well, like football wasn't really talked about uh, in like especially in comparison to other sports like for cricket. So I think, yeah, the fan following, I think now it's growing and it's on the right path, I would say. But yeah, there's still a lot of work to do, especially in terms of infrastructure, I would say.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, fingers crossed for you. As I said, it seems remarkable that a country of the size has never been in a World Cup. I mean, big enough country to host it. Actually, what's the
Yeah.
facilities like then in terms of football stadium and stuff? Would it be in a position to consider that sort of thing?
I don't think they're up to par. There's stadiums, but I mean, they share it with other sports, and as I said, the infrastructure isn't great. There's
Yeah.
not many opportunities for youngsters to actually have a career in this sport.
Do you follow like the Indian Premier League, as in football?
Not really.
No. Okay. Thinking about next season, then, how do you feel off the back of last season now coming into this season? I mean, where do you start to set yourself a target now? Because as you've honestly said, it would be obviously incredible to and almost unrealistic to think about beating it. But someone's got to, as we've learned. I can't believe I've spoken to first and second this week. I mean, it's remarkable. It's impossible. I just don't think of it. But I'm speaking to you and Jamie this week. It's made me realize, look, someone's got to do it. You're two normal guys who love your football and stuff. But how do you begin to think about next season as a target? Do you almost feel like don't put one there in a
Yeah,
roundabouts way?
this is what I was actually thinking. I'm not thinking of actually putting a target. I'm just take it from the start and see how it goes, because I don't usually like change my playing style according to what rank I am at. or what rank I'm, trying to achieve. So yeah, it doesn't really matter to me that much. So I would say no target for me.
Okay, no, I don't blame you for that. Your target should definitely beat me and Suj, but I don't doubt that you'll do that anyway. Do you feel experienced now? Because it's still new.
I don't actually. It's in a different kind of way. I actually, even making a team this season is still quite exciting, and I'm, still learning the game actually. So I wouldn't say, yeah, there's a lot to learn still, I would say.
You just made everyone feel terrible. You finished second in the world and said you're still learning the game. It's incredible. It's a really nice story. What are you thinking player wise now? I'm really interested going into this new season because we've done a look kind of historical context during these conversations this week. Let's talk a bit more in detail about next season. What do you first of what do you feel about the change in prices in terms of how
Uh,
low some of the prices are? I feel like in hindsight we should have expected it, but I'm still surprised.
yeah, I mean, with the players like Alexander Arnold and like Alexander Arnold staying at the same price is quite astonishing to me actually. And like I just feel like everyone's underpriced from the likes of Cancelo to even Rashford now 6.5. That's dirt cheap. So yeah, I think everyone's quite underpriced this season.
Does that mean for you, you're heading very much to big at the back and a big, strong defensive line, do you think?
I wouldn't say big at the back with the drafts going on at Twitter with James, Chilwell, Perisic, and Trent. I'm thinking of going with Trent and Cancelo definitely. And I'm not sure about the Chelsea picks because of I'm not really sure of how they might line up as of now. So I might just start with Mendy. And in terms of Spurs, I was definitely going to start with Perisic, but with this recent news of his injury, I think, and not getting enough preseason minutes, that may actually push me to start with Sessegnon. So yeah, I
Okay.
wouldn't say it's too big at the back, compared to the other drafts going on around.
Would there be a fear with that you're booking yourself into a transfer? And if you want to move that to Perisic from Sessegnon, that's quite difficult. Or are you thinking of getting a team that's really short term and wildcarding very early?
I am actually thinking of wildcarding quite early. I mean, I'll, kind of see how it goes because uh, with the unlimited transfers that we're getting after Gameweek 17, I think it is. So yeah, that actually kind of helps a lot in terms of, wildcard thinking because I can, just do it when I feel like I need to change 5 or 6 pairs. So yeah, there's no plan for the wildcard and I wouldn't mind using it early as well. So that's why I'm thinking quite short term, like maximum 5 to 6 game weeks.
Okay, so no specific kind of strategy. You're not at this
No.
stage considering I'm going to pick a team for 2 weeks, wildcard game week 3. If you need to, you will, but you're not thinking about doing that specifically at the moment.
Yeah, so I don't think I've actually, quite got locked into the season as of now. So I'm just, listening to the various pods and all, but I haven't actually, got into like the tinkering stage of it. So I would say it can quite change. I might think I might lock myself into a game week 3, 4 wild card. So yeah, it's not quite locked in for me. Yeah.
No, I don't think that's a bad thing because I'd say, today's draft, tomorrow's draft, yesterday's draft, and I really think you can overthink it at this stage. But the fact that you're tinkering every single day, eventually, you know what you'll end up doing the day before deadline, you end up putting someone in you hadn't thought about for the last month because you just keep tinkering away. Are you intentionally trying to avoid that at the moment then? Because we're still getting new information, like we said, with Perisic, we don't know his fitness status. Reece James played right-sided centre-back for Chelsea in America on Wednesday night. I'm along the similar lines to you and think of, I'll just cover it with Mendy a little bit at the moment. Are you intentionally kind of withdrawing yourself from the idea of over-tinkering at the moment?
Yeah, it's more about, as you said, like the lack of information right now in terms of, who gets to play all these preseason minutes and, like, uh, like a Salah can get injured. So it can, totally break the template as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of avoiding it for now and, delaying it so that when there's more information, I can, act accordingly.
I think Gabriel Jesus' ownership was absolutely flown since the start of this week, to the extent that by the time this podcast goes out, he may even be the most owned player in the game. Is he likely to be in your team, do you think?
He is. I think he's in my current draft. So I think he's a great pick. I don't quite understand this high ownership, but yeah, I think he's a great pick. Arsenal's fixtures are great. I might actually, because his first two fixtures I don't think are that great. So I might actually, start with maybe an Ollie Watkins or someone else, and maybe look to move to him because he's going to be integrated into a new Arsenal team as well. So that may take some time. And Nketiah signed that new long-term contract as well. So I think he's got to have, been promised some minutes. So yeah, but I just wait and see for me right now. But yeah, he's in my current draft.
Yeah, and in Ketch's case, obviously Arsenal are in Europe again next season.
Yeah.
So I think in the Europa League, you could buck about with the team and stuff. So yeah, I would have thought he'll start regularly in that competition. He will obviously get minutes. He's an improving young player. Actually, I was just checking the ownership, and literally he has now surpassed Haaland as the highest owned player in the game. At time recording, Jesus now up to 60.7% owned, 0.1% more than Haaland. Where do you stand on Haaland? Most people are 4 at the moment, but I think there's some doubts creeping around people.
I'm definitely for it. Haaland getting into a new Pep team who already, score a lot of goals, and like he's going to be their main goal scorer. And De Bruyne, and you got De Bruyne, the likes of Grealish and Foden, trying to create for him. So I think it's really is as simple as that. The striker for the probably the best, maybe the best team in Europe, playing. We expect around 30 games. I think he should play. So yeah, if he doesn't get injured, and with his injury record, that can be an issue. But I think to start with, if he is fit, I will be going for him.
Yeah, I'm of a similar opinion at the moment. And how you feeling about Mo?
I might go against, because it's not about going against Mo for me. I think it's going with Sunny. So I don't know why, but I do have a feeling that he's going to outscore Salah this season. And I was trying to set up a draft with 3 premiums with Salah, Son, and Haaland, and it didn't look great with the other picks. So I mean, Son's in my current draft and Salah isn't.
Is this an influence of captaincy as well, in terms of rotation? Because I think, and actually, most of the people who've been on with me this week have said it's probably no to Salah. It's not that anybody doesn't want Salah. It's just the extra million and the rotation of captaincy. Are you looking ahead with captaincy, or are you only looking at sort of the first 2 game weeks? Or
I planned for it. I think for the first 6, I've planned for it, and Sunny and Haaland will be more than enough for me, I think. But obviously, Salah can be a great pick as well. So I'm not fully like decided on it yet. But yeah, Sunny is in my current draft, and their captaincy works quite well.
No, none of us have said we'll probably go without. Want to kind of nail ourselves to it, because exactly what you said earlier. If Son suddenly gets injured, you think, oh God, I've got to find that extra million or so. Then you think, oh, can I go without Haaland? Because you can probably look at Captain Salah every week if you just go with him. It's really interesting dynamic, though. None of us want to rule it out. How do you deal with FOMO? Because he'll be one. If he's not there game week 1, he goes to Fulham 12:30 on a Saturday. You know what can happen. I know what can happen.
I mean, you're picking different players, right? So I don't really think about it that way. EO and all. I don't like to get into it too much, but with the amount of information that's out there, it kind of does, affect a little of my gameplay. So when I'm not picking Salah, I am picking Sunny, and I do get an extra million to spend. So how does that line up against Salah? So I don't always look at it that way. I try and look at my own picks and just captain the best player I have.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. Do you use prediction tools or anything like that?
No,
No.
When I'm really confused at certain points, I do tend to look at it, but then I usually don't agree with it, so I don't actually go back to it. That's how it is.
Do you watch a lot of games?
Yeah, I do. Especially with my FPL players playing in it, I do tend to watch.
So you're not so much looking out for. I'm just looking at the fixtures. Who can we skip game week 1? Well, no, it's not too many. I suppose there's involvement you could argue for in every single game in game week 1 actually. But are you less inclined to watch a game obviously if you've got no FPL assets involved?
Yeah, like a Burnley v Norwich last season.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you have access to all the games out there?
Yeah. It's dirt cheap actually. We get all Premier League games in one subscription. It's a Disney subscription.
It just
I don't
upsets
think it's
me.
the same for you guys, right?
No, it's really not, mate. It's like that's all I hear from everywhere is that everyone's got cheap subscription to every Premier League game, and that's really not the case for us here, unfortunately, which I find a little bizarre. But there you go. That's the way it is. Stats? Do you use them a lot? And if
Yeah,
so, which ones do you look for most?
in terms of stats, I would say XG plays a big role in non-penalty XG and all. Even the team's data, I actually look at Black Box a lot. So they share, nice graphics about their teams, NPXG and different players as well. Then I tend to look at, when I'm watching the games, I just try and, look for players who are trying to get into, dangerous positions, taking more shots, putting in crosses. So yeah, in terms of eye test and stats, that's where I'm at. I do prefer the eye test. Like if I can, I always try and watch the games, and then try and make my decisions early in the week, and then I look at stats and see if they back up my decision and my learnings.
Yeah, the balance of both is right. But it's interesting that again, yourself and Jamie, Grass FC is going to be so happy, do seem to have a slight preference towards what you physically see than the stats. Just an interesting take on that. Sonny is obviously the sort of player who regularly outperforms his XG. One of the reasons for that is obviously one of the best finishers around and so two-footed. Do you take that into account when you're looking looking into Sonny and you want to buy him like you did late in the season? Are you taking that into account? You're looking at going, well, he is overperforming, or do you just look at it and go, he's on a streak? How do you judge that? Because I feel like it's best to adapt that towards certain players and understand that someone like Sonny is likely to break the metric a little bit.
I mean, you have to take into consideration with world-class finishers like Salah, Kane, and Sonny. They're going to outperform their stats because they're so good at finishing and better than the average player as well. So I would say, in terms of going with Sonny, actually, this season to start with, I was just watching that Norwich game last season, the game week 38 one, and he was getting like through on to goal. I think he got through on to goal at least thrice. Where there was a Kulusevski pass also that was cleared off the line. Then there was like 2 Kane assists as well. I was looking
I was at the game, my friend. It was at my end of the ground. I was in the away end. He had in the second half, Kane put one across the box for him, which was saved from 6 yards. Yeah. He had the Kulusevski went round the goalkeeper. And if you haven't seen it, by the way, you should try and find Kulusevski does an interview on a Swedish podcast where he explains the moment where he sees Son. And
I saw your tweet.
Have you seen it? Yeah. And he changes his mind. He's absolutely brilliant. And then obviously he gets put through for the goal. But what a lot of people might not have seen is literally 1 minute before that, he went through 1-on-1 and Krul saved it. So he honestly could have got 5 in the second half of that game.
The missed chances were most of them were Kane assists as well.
Yeah. How do you feel? Do you with Kane? Are you looking at him more as a versus Haaland or a versus Son? Does that come into your thinking?
I think it's about price points in certain positions as well for me. So it is basically a Haaland versus Kane for me, and Sonny versus Salah. So that's how I would put it.
Yeah, I've been asked that a few times recently, like Kane versus Sonny. And I, to be honest, I find that difficult because I know in any given week one can outscore the other. I think it's more Kane versus Haaland, and like you, my preference is the same for Haaland at the moment. But maybe if Sonny wasn't there, I don't know if that's a different decision. Like if Sonny suddenly is not available in game week 1, I don't know if that makes Haaland and Kane not as clear cut. I mean, would that possibly impact your thinking if Sonny wasn't available? Because Kane becomes clear talisman at that stage, right?
I think I'd still go with Haaland and Salah. With Sonny not being there, it'll be probably a new front three with Richarlison Kane and Kulusevski. So we with the uncertainty there and the partnership that Sonny and Kane enjoy, it mostly leads to quite a lot of goals and assists. So I would say, yeah, with Sonny missing, I would likely stick with Haaland.
What's the alternative players you're looking at Liverpool City at the moment? I know you said sort of Cancelo, Trent, they're in, and Haaland, obviously. What else are you looking for from the top two? Because a lot of people listening will be thinking right now, got to have 6 from those two teams.
Yeah, so Luis Diaz is definitely in. And I was looking at Robertson as well because I don't have Salah in my latest draft. But I don't really like him that much as a pick, but I don't know why. Especially with, I think he had a better partnership with Mane as well, because I was looking at some, there was some stats shared on Twitter as well. With when he starts with Luis Diaz, he's actually not that efficient. And last season as well, he overperformed a lot of his XA and XG by a lot. So I'm not too high on Robertson for now. Luis Diaz is definitely in, with Jota injured and Firmino likely not be in the starting 11 all the time. So, and in terms of City, I would say I am still looking at the midfielders. I'm trying to predict how their minutes go by looking at their preseason. But that's always going to be difficult.
Yeah,
So,
X minutes is going to become a kind of a big thing. I think we're going to hear a lot more this season with 5 substitutes and stuff as well, for particularly the City guys. And I think Liverpool and Tottenham, particularly when the Champions League starts, and Chelsea, is going to become quite difficult, which potentially makes United and Arsenal assets interesting. The closer it's got, the more I've thought about United assets, and particularly a player you've already referenced, Marcus Rashford at 6.5. I mean, in theory, if United were to do really well, Rashford, Martial, Sancho, particularly if Ronaldo does leave, in theory, could all be great assets, couldn't they?
yeah, definitely. I mean, they're still a top 6 side, I would say. So given the prices coming in with Sancho at 7.5 and Rashford at 6.5, it's dirt cheap. What's Martial's price?
Oh gosh. Well, to be honest, with Martial, I want to say 7.5 or 7. I'll check that for you. But my thought process on the moment is that Ronaldo's not going to leave, and therefore you just can't really consider him at the moment. I will tell you, Anthony Martial is, drum roll, 7. It could be great. I mean, you're talking about cheaper than Watkins, Wilson, for example.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure about if I'll start with them, but definitely they're all going to be on my watch list. All 3 of them are quite cheap.
Yeah, I think if Rashford continues to do well in pre-season, I think there'll be a lot of movement towards him. And what do you think about Arsenal assets?
In terms of Arsenal, I think I'm planning on going heavy. I might even go with 3 Arsenal.
Okay.
Jesus and Saka go in my latest draft, and I was looking at Tierney earlier, but now that the Zinchenko move has finalized, I think I'm gonna try and look elsewhere. Maybe Matty Cash or someone. Even Zinchenko can be a great asset, but I'm not really sure about his minutes.
It's interesting. I think the idea might be, and Adam Pritchard will confirm it for us probably on Correspondent week next week. The idea might be to use Zinchenko in midfield. Does that instantly draw you towards him as an out of position player, or do you think, well, actually, he's still probably only going to get 3 or 4 goals playing in that position?
I think Zinchenko, if he does start in midfield, he'll probably go into my team, because I was anyway thinking of having Tierney, and with Zinchenko playing in midfield, he's probably more involved maybe, and he's a great crosser as well. So yeah, if he does look to start the season in midfield, I will probably be going for him.
Okay, interesting. Are fixtures important to you? And I think they should be for everyone to start the season, because listen, you haven't really got form through pre-season as such. Yes, people can impress in pre-season, but it doesn't mean they're going to hit the ground running during the season. Of course, you can reflect on data from the end of last season, but we have to look at the fixtures at this stage. Is that important for you going through the season?
I'm actually definitely a fixtures guy. I think fixtures breed form. So
yeah, I like that.
I'm looking at it at the start, during the season, every time. I'm always looking for these, these short-term bunts with great fixtures, and try and capitalize on these.
I presume if you're looking at, I'm just trying to think in my head now, Haaland, Son, and no one's saying you're going to go with these, Diaz, Trent, Cancelo. There's got to be an enabler or two in here somewhere. Are there certain ones that you've identified of interest?
Neto's in. I
He's in,
really
yeah.
like him as a pick. Yeah, great fixtures, doing well in preseason as well. If Bruno Lage can get his team to attack, they can, be Neto especially can be a great pick, I think.
Yeah, we think they might be switching to a back four as well. Certainly in the friendly they last played, they won 4-0. Neto got a goal and assist, and they played a back four, which we all thought this time last year was how he wanted to play. Then realised he didn't. And I've said to Bradley Parker, Wolves correspondent, a number of times, I think he's got to do it to give the team a bit of a fresh feel. Leeds and Fulham first two's great, isn't it? But there's a fear about them. There's not a fear on Neto as such. I think we all rate him as a player. The fear is Wolves, and reflecting on them last year. I mean, they actually, if you look at XG tables and stuff, they should have been right near the bottom of the table, shouldn't they?
Yeah, especially from an attacking perspective, I think they were quite awful. And with Jimenez coming back from his injury, he didn't really look 100%, and he is their talisman. So I think that did have an impact. But with Neto coming back, maybe that shifts things into their favor.
And defensively?
Defensively, I was actually thinking of going with Walker now that Zinchenko has left. Perisic is in my latest draft, as I said, but I might look elsewhere now.
Yeah, I think interest in Walker will rise if City can't get a deal done for Cucurella, which they are trying to do, but Brighton want a fixed amount of money and won't be bullied. It looks obvious that if they don't buy, then Walker and Cancelo will play every game, but I suspect that won't be the case. Interesting as well, Laporte, by the way, is likely to miss the start of the season. So you would think Stones and Diaz should be good things for the start of the season as well, actually. But I bet Stones gets used at right back sometimes, and Aki gets used at left back, and Cancelo switches to the right, and things like this. Walker feels, I mean, it's a real cheap and interesting price, Kyle Walker at 5 million, who's not been spoken about too much. He doesn't get the returns that you'd expect a Manchester City fullback to get. We know he plays this more defensive role than Cancelo does, but that still appeals to you. You're not put off. You look at it more, it's Man City playing defender, essentially.
But he's not priced as a Man City wingback as well, right?
No, I can't disagree with that.
So, I mean, if he starts and, if they don't end up signing Cucurella, I think he's a lock for me, I would say.
Is the structure important for you? Are you set in your mind like you've got to have a 4.5 forward or a 4.0 defender, or are you still flexible about it at this stage?
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I do like to have a structure, but during the season, I am quite flexible with it. Like I wouldn't mind having a great first option on the bench or something. So I would say in terms of structure, what I do like is having certain price points so that I can move to different players if my current players don't perform as expected. So I do like to have certain different price points in different positions. So this is just in terms of how if I can make it flexible for me to move to different players.
Yeah, I understand that. Is there anyone from that perspective you're worried then about, in terms of, like, are you conscious that getting to Sterling, for example, could be quite difficult, or maybe even Jared Bowen, possibly even? Are you consciously aware of that?
I am, but at the same time, I'm not really good because I'm going short. It's just short-term thinking for me right now, so I'm not really worried about the likes of Sterling and all. So I would say, and in with who was that second player you mentioned? I forgot.
Jared Bowen.
Yeah, I think Bowen's a great option, but maybe his fixtures to start with aren't that great from game week 2 maybe. So I actually might start with him. I do rate him as a option, but with Saka and Luis Diaz, at his price point and having a lot better fixtures, it's not a strong case for me.
Bowen's a player and I don't know if you feel this way. I'm not so bothered with the fixtures. I think I'd almost be more put off if they buy Breuer, for example. I think that puts a bit of doubt where I'm not sure how they're going to play. I'd look at it at the moment and think he's going to be one of the best talisman in the game. I've said previously, if he was playing for one of the big six teams, he'd probably be 10 million or so. I started with Sonny against Man City last year and he scored. And I'm not overly put off. It's the money. I think if he was 8 million with that other block, I think I'd start with him actually. It's just that little 0.5. That said, I do like the idea if it can be forced to start with him. And if you realize you don't like it, you can drop to any of that cluster of 8 million. It feels important to be, you've obviously got Saka and Diaz potentially at the moment. It feels really important to be around that value. I get a little bit nervous when I see 5-2-3 teams, for example, and it's Salah and Neto, for example, and 4.5 million midfielders. How do you feel about that as a setup?
I think especially with forwards not performing that well last season, I'm not too keen on owning 3 forwards, so I do own a 4.5 forward as well. So in terms of that setup, that it's not very flexible as well, in terms of if you want to get to maybe a Sterling or even with that 8 million price point, you have so many options, and even Madison and Kulusevski. So I think with the amount of options there is at that price point, it's really important to have at least one of them, I would say.
Suvansh, your wisdom has been a pleasure to listen to. Congratulations on a sensational FPL season and the very best of luck to next season. Where can everyone follow you on Twitter, my friend?
Well, let me check my Twitter handle.
It's Suvansh FPL, mate.
Yeah, Suvansh FPL at Suvansh FPL.
Good man.
Thanks for having me on, James. So it was great.
Pleasure. Honestly, great speaking to you. It's really nice to get such different opinions. And I think that to thank you and the other 4 guys, Joe, Andy, I have to remember them all now, Dave and Cole, who all come on this week. You've all added different variety. We have had themes like potentially no Salah and stuff, which is quite interesting. But you've all offered something really different and great insights. So thank you to yourself and the 4 other guys. Been absolutely brilliant this week. Suj will be back from his latest holiday next week for our biggest week of the year. It's Correspondent Week, starts on Monday. 20 podcasts in 7 days, one with each of our fan correspondents, with a dedicated podcast for all 20 Premier League teams. That will kick off 10 a.m. Monday morning. Keep an eye out for a trailer on Twitter tonight, which will confirm the schedule for who's, where and when next week. But just leaves me to say thanks again to Suvansh. Remember, everyone, be nice to each other, play it your way, and cue music, please, man. Shop.